Hello and welcome back to my channel. So as you may know by the cover picture or the title, I've got myself a nice little D5. Now this is not brand new. I have had to buy some parts to change it over to the DJI FPV system, but more about that in a bit. I think this is going to be a good one. Get your coffee. See you in a minute. Okay, so got it in the box, really good. I got 3 batteries with it, but more about that later on. So in the box, as you can see there, I've got ND filters. So I got ND filters with it, so I was really happy with that. Let's get the box out of the way. And then I got the D5, and the D5, got it from my mate Corey FPV. He's decided to get rid of these, so I got them a nice little bargain. And this is going to continue to help me do freestyle or cruising or whatever I decide to do. So this has got the 04 inside. So I have got to change the SBUS cable. So that's what we're going to do next. But just quickly run over it. So we've got a strap, battery mount, then the motors. These are 2207E. So pretty good for what I'm going to actually be doing. So I did buy a little adapter. So these parts will be on the website that I create for this. By the time you see this, it'll be live and there'll be a link in the description. So it's got 2 straps for the battery. The battery's quite big, but yeah, that's quite a worry. And then what we have to do, we have to put them, slot them in right. So I'm going to keep them in like that. Hopefully not break them. Let's put it down. Right, so that slots in. I am looking at putting GPS on this just so I can pay attention to whereabouts I am. So if you haven't already, subscribe, because I've already done this, what I'm about to do with the Baby Hawk. That's on my channel as well. It's quite easy to do with this, I hope. Pray, touch wood and all the rest of it. But this is plug and play. Where the Baby Hawk was more fiddly and I had to solder it. So that was a lot of fun setting that up. So hopefully I've learnt enough and this should be pretty straightforward. Or I'm going to eat my words, whichever one that's going to be. So, okay, so now we're upstairs and what we need to do is update the drone and also get Betalight. But if you've already done this, if you've already updated Betalight, go here on these minutes. And if you've already updated Betalight and installed it, and then also installed and updated your firmware for the DJI camera system, as you can see, I've taken the top off there, but we're going to update that. And then the way to do that is, if you can see that, let's turn that way on, that bit there, there's a little grommet. Take that grommet out and then you should be able to see that there, and then we're just going to plug in, well, it doesn't reach, we're just going to plug in the USB into there, and then that should just turn on. And we've got lights on the side there. Is that a funny angle? I don't know if you can see that, but it's come up on the screen. So we've got that, that's working, and we can update that. So let's jump in and get Betalight. So first thing to do is get your Internet Explorer, type in the top. Betalight, literally is that simple. And then you can see there, you've got Betalight app and Betalight download. So we're going to press on download. The really cool thing is if you press on the latest version of Betalight configurator, you can use your Internet Explorer. It's a Internet Explorer for Microsoft and Chrome, I believe. But we're not going to do that today. What we need to do is actually get Betalight installed. So we're going to go down to the latest firmware, latest release. Wait for that to load. And now this gives you the screen for GitHub with all your open source software is. You go down to the bottom. And then what we're looking for is the exe64, Win64 installer. I've got 64-bit. System. You may have Linux. Press on the deb file for that, or the APK file for if you use, I think it's Android that, but we'll download that. Should take a couple of seconds, so not too long. So while we're waiting for that to download, we also need to make sure that we've got the DJI software installed. And a side note for that is when you've got the DJI software installed as well, it will take precedence over the Betalight. So only use one piece of software at a time. So first we're going to update and install Betalight. And then what we're going to do is open up DJI and make sure it's up to date. I've already done this because of the problems I had, but we'll get to that in a bit. But I'm going to run through this from beginning to end, and then we're going to also go over the bits that I got wrong or I couldn't suss and figure out. My mate Corey, I went up to see him after work one day and we got it sorted. Well, he did it. I just watched. I was just like, he knows what he's doing. Okay, so that's now downloaded. We're going to press the file on the right hand side there, and then that'll open up the download location where we've got Betalight there. And as you can see on the screen, I've got the text file and then the firmware file on there as well. Already downloaded, that's in there, but we'll come to that anyway. So we'll press on Betalight configurator. That'll bring up the installer when it decides to. This laptop, it's a good laptop, but it has a moment now and again. Probably needs coffee. That's a good point. I need to get some coffee. I left my cup downstairs. So we'll just wait for this to install. So there we go. We install the users recommended. I've completely uninstalled this, so that's the reason why I'm doing this. I think the software just got corrupted somewhere along the line, and that's one of the reasons why I had a problem. So accept the agreement, and then go through there. Just say yeah, blah 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 blah. Now it's installing, and we're gonna wait again. So let's speed it up. Right now it's installed. It's saying it wants to start, so let's start it. You don't have to start it, but we're going to start it to make sure it's installed correctly, because you just never know. Okay, so we're installed. We've got Betalight installed. We're going to shut that down now, and then we're going to go to the DJI. So if we type in DJI, I've already got this installed. So you want DJI Assistant 2. All the links to the Betalight that I've used and also DJI Assistant is on the web page that I've created for the D5. If you want to jump over there and have a look on there, there's various other different links and so forth I've got on there that will support this video. So it's asking me to plug it in. I've already plugged it in, so sometime today. There we go. It's recognised it. It's DJI 04 Pro Air unit. It won't come up and say it needs an update because I've currently got the most up-to-date version. Now it did need an update when I first did this, as you can see in this part of the video. We'll swap over to the previous version. I did need it, so it is now up to date. So close that down. That's the last thing we're going to do with that. Let's close. Now we're finished with that and it's updated, and then we want to go back to Betalight configurator, open that back up. Okay, now we're good to go. We're going to plug in the drone, but before I do that, I'm going to go get some coffee. Okay, so now I've got my coffee. If you've been following along, thank you very much. I know I've got to ramble on a little bit, but by now you should have put the SBUS cable in. So as you can see there, I've got my SBUS cable in there. You should have put that in there by now, and you should have downloaded the Betalight software, and then you should have also updated the DJI drone air unit to the current firmware. So right, let's get into this. So first we need to download the CLI file from Geprc. So let's jump into the website. So Geprc, just type in the top Geprc, and then go onto their website. Well, that's a nice drone. I wonder what that one is. Anyway, oh, hello, that is nice. Right, sorry, I apologise. Right, carry on. So go to support and download, and then in there you need to go to the actual drone that is your drone. So this one is the Vapor D and X, which is D5, and the X, which is the larger one. And then you want the CLI, press on there, and then you got your Vapor DC, and you've got, if you look there, X5. You don't want none of them. We've got the D5, so let's not get confused. And because I was like, oh dear, there's a lot on here. You got the X5 and so forth, and I was like, well, let's just calm down. So anyway, also I want to thank Geprc for everything they've done in regards to communication and making this possible, because absolute nightmare, and like I couldn't figure it out. I was backward and forward on their support, and absolutely brilliant. They was talking to Corey as well. They didn't need to do that, and absolutely brilliant. So we was all on the same page. So when we finally did figure out what was wrong, it just did it. So anyway, let's carry on. So I want the SBUS 04 4.5.1. We're not on GPS. I am going to put GPS on this, but that's for another video. So you just click on there and you want to make sure it's the SBUS, which is the file. You can see that's the file. So if you press back and then go back to CLI, because I made that same mistake, I just clicked on it, press your right mouse button, and then in there, save link as. So then when you save link as, it will actually save the text file. So you'll see there the text file, TEXT file at the bottom. And it's just a simple text file, that's all it is. But you want to save it in your downloads folder. In there, what I've done is I've got D5 and then D5 the D. That's when I started having problems. So in there, you can see I've got the Vapor D5 04 S sub 4.5.1, and this is the one we're downloading, and you can see on the 11th. So this is like nearly a week ago now, 5 days ago, but it's taken a bit of doing, but it's done. So I'm not going to save that. So make sure you've saved it. I actually got the firmware download as well from Geprc. They sent me the link to be able to download the firmware just in case it was actual firmware within Betafly. Turned out it wasn't, but I got it anyway and I was really good with that. So save that file. So now the next thing you want to do is you want to go into Betafly. So let's load that up. So we're now into there. Then let's connect the drone. Just wait for it to load. Right, we're loaded up. It's plugged in. And first thing I do before I do anything is just move the drone, and you'll see on the screen the drone gyro is moving. So we know it's connected. So go down to CLI before you do. Sorry, that's the cat's being crazy. What we need to do first is we need to create a dump file. So if you press dump file there, let's call it 17.9.25. That's when this was recorded, number 1. And if you do that, that's saved the file. So let's have a quick look to see what it's saved. See how it's blank? There's nothing in that file. Make sure you check your file before you do anything. So let's dump all the configuration. So dump all. So that will dump all the settings that's in your drone straight into the text file. And what you want to do is then save that. So make sure you do the first one, which is the dump all. So it's dump all the files and then save to file. So now what we're going to do is we're going to click on the top one. So it sees where it says number 1. We're going to do number 2. And then we're going to do dump all, because we've dumped it all. And now we'll clear output history. And then we'll go into there to make sure it's saved. You can see how it says 37K. I know that's saved now, so we're good. So what we want to do is we want to do diff all. And then we want to save that as well. So save and then press the top one. So that will say dump all number 2. So we're going to do number 3 diff all. And that's that saved. And then we'll go into the file, make sure it saved it. So that's all the diff file. And you see it's at the top, so it's diff all. So it saved all the file information, and that's what you want. You want all that information saved, because if you make a mistake, all your settings have gone, all that hard work is disappeared. Where this, you can load it back in and it brings all your settings back. Okay, so let's now go to receiver. Now we've not firmware flashed it yet, and we've not actually linked the drone to the goggles, but that's going to be the next stage. So anyway, so on here, as you can see, I've got all my nice colours down the side. There you've got auxiliaries 1 to 14, all that, because it's now flashed and it's correct. But what you want to do is you change it over from, this was CRSF, and then we want to change that over to SBUS. So just click on SBUS and then save and reboot. And then what that'll do is it will change it over from CRSF to SBUS. And remember, we'll put the cable in there, so it should be communicating. But just in case that don't happen, all these bars will be blank, and you'll see just now they'll be blank. They was when I was trying to do it. So this is the previous footage before I was actually successful in doing this. So if they're blank, don't panic. Don't go, oh my God, what do I do now? Don't worry. So what we need to do is we need to load the CLI factory reset into it. So we can go into CLI and then load from file, go to your download. Remember where I put it on the 11th, and then I saved it into there, and you'll see the text file there. I'm not going to do it. And then press open, and what they'll do is it will load it into Betalight, which then will load it up into the FC of the board, and then that's basically factory resetting it. And then when that's finished, obviously save, and then go back to receiver, just wait for it to load, and then that should be like that. If it's not and it's got blank lines, it's still not work. So what you need to do is you need to change the firmware over in the drone, and to do that, go up to firmware, update firmware, top right hand corner, and in there you can press auto detect, and it should auto detect it, which it has, Geprc 7.22, and then that's the new firmware for it. But the current firmware is 4.5.1, and the way I know that is when you go press connect, go back to the original, it's in the top left there. So just pay attention to that when you plug your drone in. Make sure you're using the right firmware, because you could kill your drone, and that's the last thing you want to do. So go back to firmware update, and then let it auto detect. Remember 4.5.1, and in there radio protocol, that'll be CRSF, and then all your other options that you want to add in there. So when I do the GPS is already in there, but it'll be on there as well. And then from there, load firmware online. You'll see it's cached, it's loaded it up, and then flash firmware. I'm not going to do it because it's already done, but that will then flash the firmware onto the drone. And then what will happen is when it's rebooted, so it will reboot. So let's unplug it. So then essentially that is reboot. The firmware is now in, and then when you press on, let's get it to reboot. There we go. And then when you go to auto detect, it will actually say SBUS in there, and then you're like, wow, that's worked. But what else? Why do I need that? So what's happened is the bait firmware that's in the software of the drone, it was getting that big that Betalight decided to break it up. So you've got your different protocols for different drones. So why would you have SBUS if you're using the TBS system that it was? So they've just taken one big piece of cake and cut it into 4. So you've got one section rather than the whole thing. So you don't need as much memory in the drone. So we've got one piece of that cake rather than all the cake. So your SBUS is your piece of cake, and then the CRSF is another one, and then you've got the other protocols in there. So we've got 2, 4, we've got 7 pieces of cake in there. Well, there's even more as you go further now. So just think of it that way. So then we'll come back out of here. Now we know that firmware is updated, and then we'll go back to receiver. This then should have reset to SBUS, and then you'll get all your colors, and then you know it's worked. And then you're like, yeah, but what about all my settings, Craig? You can load all that back in. So go back to the CLI, and then load from file, and then you can load up the original ones that we've done today. So that's today's upload. So that's in there. It's a blank file. Always double check your file when you downloaded it. So I didn't double check it, and I left it for that very reason. So always check when you save the file initially that you go back into it. So we could actually go to the download, which is here, and then we can double click on there, and you can see it's an empty file. So what we want, let's save. So let's save it again. Let's do just a random name this time. So it's still blank. Make sure that file has got all your data in it, because you're going to have a problem. What you want it to look like is, if I remember right, it's that one. You want it to look like that. The last thing you want it to do is be blank. So make sure you've loaded it correctly. So right, so let's go back to receiver. So that's not working, but your controller's not connected to it yet. So the next stage really is to bind the goggles to the drone. So let's do that next. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to plug the drone in with a battery, and I've got the Dogcom 6S 1500 milliamp, and these output continuous power 150C. You can see that at the top. So that's some power. So I'm going to advise you now before you mess around with the drone, connect the drone to the cable to your computer, which then will put it into like a limp mode. And also, as you've seen just then, is I have not got the propellers on this for safety. If you're messing around doing anything indoors with this drone, do not have the propellers on, because if you hit the switch and it goes, it's going to make a mess of anything. So just a bit of a disclaimer, when you're doing this, make sure the propellers are off. And for me, I always make sure it's plugged into Betafly and then it's connected. So what I'm going to do is I've got the remote on and I've also got the goggles. They're switched on. I did have the baby York out yesterday, so we need to configure this and then bind it. So plug it in. So we're now live. So what we need to do is bind the drone to the goggles and the remote. So before you do anything, get a pen, something simple, and then on the side of the air unit there's a little button. You have to push that in. We've now put it into bind mode and it's flashing red. So let's jump into the goggles. Take my glasses off before I do anything. First thing to do is bind the goggles to the drone, and then you have to bind the remote to the goggles. Now with the version 2 that I had, you had to bind the goggles to the drone and then bind the remote to the drone. Crazy. So it's kind of communicating two different ways to the drone. But with this one, with the new N3, it's only communicating one way, and that's through the goggles, which is okay. But when you start going far out, it becomes a bit iffy, because then you've only got one form. You lose video, you lose control of the drone altogether. I don't like the idea of, but anyway, that's for another video. Always keep this in your goggles when you're not using it. Right, let's get it bind, so that, because that's still flashing. So if you just press down on there and then press on status, and then at top right there you can see it's at Air 3. So we're going to move on to the DJI 04 Air Unit Pro 4. So wait for that to switch over. Right, that's now switched over. And then what we're going to do is we're going to keep a finger on there, and you'll see the light's now flashing. That will now bind to the drone, and it's gone green on the side and it's beeped nicely and it's now communicating. So we need to make sure the remote is now connected. You can see in the goggles I've got feed now, so I've got voltage, got altitude and everything, so that's really good. I want to see if the remote are communicating to the drone, so we're going to go through this anyway. But you can see at the top there it's jumped into air and then angle, and that's set to that. So let's see if it arms. It's currently plugged in, so we know that's working, and then we want to make sure the beep is working as well. We're going to go through all these settings anyway, but you can hear it beeping. That's like if I lose the drone, I know that's the button to hit, so I've got that set to there. But we're going to go through all them settings anyway, so we know the remote and also the goggles are now communicating to the drone. And just remember to make sure it's plugged in, because if you did any of that when it wasn't plugged in to, let's disconnect the drone. So I've disconnected it now, so it's safe. So let's pull that. So always make sure this cable is connected through Betafly, and you'll see that it's moving, so you know it's connected to the drone, and it kind of puts this into like a safe mode, if you like. So always make sure this cable's connected before you do any messing about. So right, so now we know we're all communicating with the goggles and the remote. We can now put these away in regards to, let's set them up properly. So I'm not really putting them away. So right, let's go into that next. Okay, before we go any further, I nearly forgot. So to set S-board fast, so it's basically lower latency. It's a bit like speed mode. So let's just jump into the goggles quickly and I'll show you where that is. So in the goggles, while the drone is switched on, if you just press your button down on there and then go to settings and then go down to control, and you can see where protocol is S-board fast, board fast, make sure that is set to the top setting, and that will give you the lower latency. But we also need to put that into the drone. I'm going to show you that next. Okay, so while we've still got the drone on, and now we've turned on SBUS Fast in the goggles, just remember to put that on. This is still switched on, but we need to keep this on so we can do the next stage to check the controller, but we're jumping ahead. So quickly, while the drone is switched on, we need to go into CLI, and yes, I know, just give me a second. So we need to set SBUS Fast. Let's put my goggles on, my glasses on. Right, so in here, so set SBUS underscore board fast, and then equals on, and then when you press that, it's in there, and then remember to press save, and then the drone's reset, and now that's set. So we can move on to the next stage, and the next stage is really to check the controller, make sure that's working, because put all them settings in. So let's jump over to that. So go to receiver, and then we've got all the nice bars that I like. I had so many problems with these bars, but let's just check the remote quickly. So we've got the remote, and you can see they're working. They're working. I can't explain how happy I am to see them move. So right, so now we know they're working. We need to check and make sure everything is set right. So you want to make sure your arming button's correct and stuff like that. So we're going to do that next. I keep putting the controller down, I don't know why I do that. So to do that, we need to go over to, if I remember right, it's not in modes. Yes, it is in modes. I'll get it right at some stage. This is the second time I've ever done this. Right, so in here, it's already preset. So we've got beeper preset, angle, and also arm. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to beeper. And if we set beeper to auto, I like beeper on stop and start, and I want this set up the same way as I would if I'm flying the Vapor 2 or Vapor 1. So I'm going to hit that for auto. It's now beeping, and it's also come up in the screen. So we've got aux4 now, so we know that's working. So when we hit it, it jumps over and it's arming it, so we know that's working. So let's move over to angle. So I like to use angle. When I first got the Beat Baby Hawk and started playing around with it, I used angle. It was okay. I have tried playing around with landing in angle, taking the goggles off, and that's becoming a bit of a success. So I'm going to keep playing with that, and then when I'm happy with it, I'll make a video on it, but that's for another day. So what we need to do is do angle, and for me on angle, I have this button here. So in the Vapor and any of the DJI drones, you click these and it moves the drone into sport mode, normal mode, and then acro, which is the bottom one, and hence why the buttons are named the way they are. So we've got normal, sport, and then manual being crazy mode. So what we're going to do is we're going to press aux again, we're going to press auto again, and then we're going to go down to manual, and it's auxiliary 1. So when I put it into manual mode, which is that button, I want it to be not in angle. So we're going to move that over there, so you can see that 2000 there. So when I put it in to normal mode, sport mode, which is that button there, we're going to move that all the way over actually, because you can see where it's arming there. So now that whole, the top button there and the middle button is now, as you can see, angle mode. And then when I press down, which will be manual mode in the DJI drone, is now going to be air mode for this nice little drone, the D5. So anyway, so that's working. So now my arm button, I don't use these buttons on the DJI drones. And I purposely do not do that for this very reason. I had this in mind when I first started flying the DJI FPVs. So what I want to do is I want the arm button. So I'm going to press auto again. I want this arm button. So when it's down, it's armed. And I have done a video, I'll put it in the link, on arming the motors on the DJI Vapor 1 and 2 using that very button. So every setting is the same. So I don't get confused and go, oh, I've got the Vapor, boom, and then all of a sudden my D5 has just gone into a tree because I weren't paying attention. I know all the settings on my remote are exactly the same. I would advise doing the same if you're using this. I have got this springy as well. So we need to pay attention Normally you'd take the spring out of it for using a manual mode, but I'm doing it this way. This is starting to overheat, so we're happy with this. And then all you do is you press save at the bottom. So I'm happy with that. So we can take that off. You can see the disarm, it's disarmed when you do that. It's because it's plugged in. Remember when I plugged it in? Keep it plugged in for things like this, and we can do that. So if we press save, and we can save them 3 settings, and then that saved it to the drone. And we're happy. So we're happy now. So let's unplug it and then plug it back in. And then just go back to the settings, the modes, to make sure they're all in, and they're all in. So we're happy. I can disconnect this now. So I'm gonna turn the drone off. Okay, so let's get some propellers on the good old D5. So before I do, let's have a look what's in the box. So out the box, I got a ton of different, I've got one set of new sides for the D5. Currently got the orange ones on, as you can see. And then battery supports, and then different screws. I've got Allen keys, I'll just show you them quickly. Right, with a bunch of different screws. So there's the bolts. That's a GoPro mount, I think. I've got Allen keys and then screws and so forth. And then I've got a different, I think that is a mount for the antennas at the back. Just a spare one, which is really good. Loads of parts. So anyway, get them all in there. Stop digressing, Craig. Right, I've got 2 different types of propellers. So I've got the standard ones, I think, yeah. And then I've got the orangey red ones. Personally, I like the orangey red ones because they were the same as the Baby Hawk. I think they're cool, so we're going to go with them. And then we've got stickers and some other bits and bobs in there, like manual and so forth. And that's pretty much it. That's it in the box. So I don't digress. We'll just get the propellers straight on, shall we? So, not got the up camera at the top. It's pretty straightforward. These rotate inwards, as you remember before when I showed you in Betaflight. And if you're unsure, just grab another drone. So I've got the Baby Hawk here. When I made this video, I used the Avata, and as you can see, the propellers, they go inwards. And it's literally that simple. And then the other way around, they go outwards at the back. So I'm going to do that exactly the same. So I'm going to get them out of the bag, save all the bags and so forth. I do like them, they're nice, they are. This thing's going to rip. Can see it already. Going to have a time of my life. So as you look at them, we've got one goes that way and then one goes that way. They're not the same if you lay them on top of each other. And the idea is to put on top of each other. So you've got 4 in a square, and you'll notice that one goes one way, one goes the other way. And then if you get another drone, you want to make sure that the bottom ones or the top ones are switched over. So, so the blades are pointing inwards. So you can't see that, but you'll see what I mean in a second. So if I just show you on here quickly, so the top ones I've flipped over, and then the bottom ones I've left as they are. And as you'll see a bit closer, I'll do that. You'll see they're slightly different. So anyway, stop rambling, Craig. Right, I like to place the drone in the middle, and then I get my trusty tool. This has turned out really good, this. Like I've already said, anything that I've described or explained in this video, I'll put it to links in the description, and then if you head over to my website, there'll be even more detail, because this has been a real labour of love doing this. It's been quite stressful, but I've also enjoyed it at the same time, the different things that I've learned, and to get this to work. Well, get it to work. I've not took it off yet. That's going to be the next thing. So lightly screw them on. Like so. Just make sure they're on the right way. There's no right or wrong there. Yeah, there's no right or wrong there. Last thing I want to do is put them on the wrong bloody way. And then I'm like, oh, I've done it the wrong way, Craig. What are you doing? Right. They're on. We've got, so they're kind of been drilled out a little bit, but the bolts will sit better. Put them on top, there'll be a better surface area. Right, and then we're just a case of tightening this up. Make sure they're relatively tight, not too tight. You don't want to shred it, and you don't want to damage the motors and the propellers at the same time. Means this is the first time. I can be quite heavy-handed when I want to be, so just have to be a bit careful. Okay, they're on. Right, we're on. And just to be on the safe side, I'm going to sit that on the top, and that's going to fit exactly the same. We've got that on. And one last thing before I go outside to say, I've got my bag, my trusty DJI bag. Now, I did a small video, I'll put it in the links again, so I can fasten my baby hawk on the front like so. And then I don't have to worry about taking propellers off and things like the front and that. It's not going to be inside, and I know exactly where it is. Now, D5 sits on there perfectly. So what I'm thinking of doing is I'm going to put another one just there, like so. So that sits nicely. So that's what we're going to do next. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to put that on. I don't think I'm going to video it because I've already done the top one, so there's no point doing a second one. But if it goes well, there'll be a picture right here of the finished product, fingers crossed. And I'll see you outside in a second. Well, that's surprising how well that handles. That 04 camera is absolutely lush. It just, oh, that is nice. See the video quality already. I like I've got altitude. It's that is lush. That camera, you can see the difference in quality from the 03. Flies really nice. I like how I've got altitude. I ain't gonna worry about that. I am gonna put GPS on this. That is well nice. 3.9 volts. Go down low to the ground. I've got 60 megabytes a second. I normally start dropping as I get here, so still at 60 megabytes a second on video feed. That is amazing. Corey said to punch it, so let's punch it. Line it up, go. Holy Jesus. That's nearly 100 meters up. That is nice. Very responsive. Massive difference with the 6S as well. Like, I'm used to 4S with the Baby Hawk. It's only 800 milliamp, 850 milliamp I think it is. Sorry about the traffic. It's early morning, so it's quite busy. But I'm used to 850 milliamp, so about 4 minutes in, I'm tanked. I need to come in, but this is nice. Them colours are gorgeous. Hello, Mr. Bird. I'm going to have some fun with this. Wow, wow. It's been a bit of a journey getting this in the ear, and I'm glad I persevered with it. It's been a great video. Hope you enjoyed it. We're coming at 3 minutes now, so 3.65 volts, so it's getting to the point where I need to land, which is another subject of mine that's quite interesting, trying to land these things. But this is lush. 3.6 volts, sorry, 3.66 volts at 3.5 minutes. I'm normally now with the Baby Hawk, because I've done it this morning, 2 minutes I'm having to land, purely because it's a smaller battery. But this is just absolutely, it sounds amazing. I don't know if you can hear that. That sounds amazing. Very much a cruising sort of drone, but also it's got the caveat that it can do. That's well nice how that curves around there. There's no wind today, absolutely no wind at all. It's about 8 miles an hour, I think. Try not to get too close to me, but you should be able to hear it. That's sounds a lot like the DJI FPV, the original one. But in comparison, this is nice. A bit nervous flying this, because this is like the second drone I've got that's full manual, and having to, I'm all on my own now. So it's not like the DJI stuff, where the DJI stuff looks after you. You've got your brake button and stuff. This, you're all on your own, and this is nice. I like this. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm going to shut up, enjoy the video, and I'll see you in the next one with this D5. This has been amazing.